Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Bull. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello and welcome to today's. Go off to a cracker there. Hello and welcome to this episode of Wolves Fancast. The people listening on podcast will not understand why we just burst out laughing. So it means you've got to go check it out on YouTube, everybody. Joining me on this wonderful Monday night, a week before Christmas, I've got Ed, Matt, and Michael. We're going to be talking, obviously, about the defeat to West Ham. Having a look at the busy Christmas period that we're coming up as well, and also looking a little bit forward to January as well. After John Percy article earlier today about, well, basically trying to get rid of some players at the moment. Before we go on to the game, really keen to catch up with Matt and Michael because you both do the commentary stuff at Wolves, and I was going to say, really great sort of bit of PR and press the other week around it, and it seems to be going from strength to strength at the moment.
Yeah, we were kind of blindsided, weren't we, when it come to the Mirror came in and did some some coverage with us midway through doing commentary, and kind of we were all penned in, and it was me and Ruben were doing it. It was another one of the chaps that does it, and well, any press is good press, and all the plaudits really go to Laura at Wolves, who does a fantastic amount of work for disability and accessibility. And Michael's been doing it longer than me. He's very much the grizzled young veteran in this, and kind of taught me a thing or two in that sphere as well. So I put a lot of credit to him.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I wasn't actually there for the Mirror piece, but I can imagine it being stressful, like Matt said, because I don't know if he said it before, but where you sit in the press area, or where we sit, is on the back row, and behind us are these like flippy desks that they've just not fixed at Molineux. And every week without fail, we have, it's not normally journalists or reporters sitting behind us. It's normally fans who've got the seats. I'm not sure how, but yeah, most weeks without fail, there's a drink that spills over us, or maybe not over us. That's a bit over the top, but in our direction.
As a vegetarian this time of year who's craving Bovril, I've kind of turned around with my mouth open, hoping a bit of Bovril will fall into my mouth.
Very much reminiscent of a scene of The Simpsons,
yes.
with Barney, I'm imagining. I was going to say, small plug as well for yourself, Michael, as you do your own podcast as well.
Yeah, so I've been doing a couple for a while, but next year I'm launching like very much my own one. It's called At World Ranking Pod, which I've put in the name for today, and it's just going to be basically exclusively about international football. I won't go on for it too long, but yeah, there's loads of major tournaments next year. There's Euros, AFCON, AFC, the Asia Cup, Copa America as well. And the point of it is to try and make sure we're trying to tell in stories that aren't really always that told. So whilst we'll be focusing a lot on the tournaments next year, you know, it's about filling those gaps between the international breaks where everybody thinks international football disappears. But for many areas in the world, it doesn't. So yeah, if you fancy something a bit different from the rigours of club football, and I suspect a few Wolves fans might do after West Ham's game, yeah, have a listen. We start of January next year.
I say that sounds really fascinating, especially when you consider the amount of Wolves players who are likely to feature in some of those tournaments, particularly with I think Lamina.
Lamina isn't. So Lamina, I thought, was for ages, but Gabon didn't qualify. So I think we're a bit actually better off. I mean, I think Boubacar Traore is also on the periphery of the Mali squad. So we might actually not be too hard done by, but if it's an excuse to make some signings, it might be a good thing, mightn't it?
Exactly. Because we do sort of need them, don't we? And I know, like, looking at the lineup yesterday, it was the first time in quite a number of weeks Gary O'Neill kind of reverted to a back four. And I guess kind of before we drop into the lineup, it was only announced after the game, I guess, but quite a number of the players were suffering from a virus as well. I mean, did anyone else kind of get a little bit funny when they saw it? Because I saw it and I thought it looked just a bit oddly shaped. You know, you've got Totti playing at left back, despite the fact that you've got two left backs on the bench, for example. It looked just a little bit mishmash for me. Matt, what were your kind of thoughts on the lineup?
Yeah, it was a strange one. Not really having a handle on shape of that. I know that the last couple of games, Forest and Burnley, have been a bit lacking creatively, a little bit starved of any excitement in those games. So whether Gary O'Neill was looking to kind of mix things up, or whether it felt like this was just the survivors of a particularly difficult Christmas do or something like that, I just don't know. Like with the kind of viruses and things that are going around the camp, I suppose you never know. But then I think it was Lamina and one other had said, you know, I want to play. You have to commend that. But the change in formation away from home, where we've struggled as of late. I saw a stat earlier that we've only beaten Southampton, I think Burnley and Bournemouth away in like years and years, in the last two campaigns or something. Doesn't seem like the right place to make radical changes.
Yeah, and I think particularly when you look at, I know I didn't see there being much issues with the formation with Wolves in terms of things like that. We looked a bit more steady at the back. You know, our wing backs were getting involved, even Bueno when he was stepping in for Nori. But particularly when West Ham had got, you know, battered for weeks before, I know it struck me as an odd time to change. I'm genuinely interested in, you know, whether that was, I guess, flu related, or whether that was, you know, something of O'Neill's own invention.
I don't know. I think the same Wolves team that played, okay, regardless of formation changes, the same Wolves team that played Burnley and Forest, I think would have lost by a relatively similar scoreline. I don't think we would have challenged them too much. I think it's just been generally quite flat over the last few games. But yeah, I know what you meant about the formation was weird. It's a weird hybrid between a back five and a back four. And then the bit I didn't get was Kilman and Dawson sticking on those sides.
Yeah.
When the only theory I had was Dawson was there to stop a left footer cutting in, and you had Kudus and Bowen coming in off the right. But I think they both comfortably had the pace to get past him, so I don't think it worked very well.
That they did.
Yeah, they did.
Doesn't take an awful lot, does it? But you're right, and I know a lot was sort of said pre-match, and Gully Molyneux Musings was very vocal in the fact that, you know, we are very much a four at the back when we don't have the ball, and the shape has always been quite fluid. But it seemed to me that they'd have had to have relied on, you know, effectively one of those attackers, you know, whether it be Bellegarde or Sarabia or Hwang, to be able to fill in as a hybrid left wing back. And I don't think that frankly suits any of their games, does it?
No.
I was going to say, the other one, Ed, was Sarr apparently dropping out late doors with a shoulder injury, and nothing to do with being linked to Saudi Arabia, as Stu said.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to spell in Saudi Arabia, and one of them's shoulder instead of Saudi, isn't it? So, yeah, Dan Bentley, I'm sure will cover the goals. Didn't really cover himself in glory, but that was a surprise. And I think just to touch on the change to four at the back, I'm sure Gully will do a GTA if he hasn't done it already. Will do it. For me, I felt like West Ham are an out to in team, so I think we needed to pack that midfield and middle a bit more. And three centre backs would naturally have done that anyway. And I think it was a hybrid yesterday. Lamina, Matt tried to pause me in the group because I said Lamina was really deep at one point. And he was, and I wondered if he was supposed to be the de facto third centre back at times, but it just didn't work yesterday. And I think if you needed any more proof that Dan Bentley isn't a number one, I think we saw that yesterday.
Yeah, I did have a very cool joke lined up after the first goal, which was very fitting. His name's Dan Bentley because you could fit a car between him and his near post. But that felt too cruel to post online, but not cruel enough for me to tell you guys and the tens of people listening. But you're right. It did sort of seem like we had this tactical idea that just didn't quite pan out at certain points. And I mean, the one minor relief, and it sounds quite bad when I phrase it, was like that is we didn't concede inside the first 15 minutes.
We could dine on that all day long.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's what counts.
Yeah, I mean, not without want of trying though. I didn't, Gary O'Neill came out, didn't he? And he said that the game was very much like lost on moments as opposed to lost on the whole. And it's like defensively for the 3 goals were, really, really the basics, the fundamentals. And they just, I don't know what it is about us getting going in the start of games at the moment, why it's taking kind of so long for us to have to like suckers for punishment, really. Like we can't get going. It's like a Morrissey album. Like we absolutely need to be miserable before we can perform anything of any decent value. It's just, it seems like we have to suffer before we can actually turn things on in a game. It's a kind of a bizarre complex that's going on at Wolves at the moment. The goals weren't good enough, and I do agree with Gully somewhat in his comments where he says that there wasn't. I don't know if there was too much in between the two squads other than West Ham's chances were taken. Like there was some spectacular offensive ability with some spectacularly bad defending, and it was a game built on moments, like I said, as opposed to poor performance, I think.
Yeah, but it's really hard to marry that up with the genuine fact we conceded 3 goals though. And I don't know. There's been slightly too many performances now in the first half of the season, and I'm not saying we wheeled out the chronometer or anything like that, but there have been quite a few performances now where, I think of the Brighton game where we got pumped at home effectively, and that felt similar in terms of we were playing against a team. We didn't play awful, but we just had this kind of complete mental switch off at all the wrong times and got severely punished for it. And part of it, again, must be tactical, but part of it's surely the mental aspects as well. And particularly for the first goal, who just scored, Gary O'Neill said afterwards, and I do commend him for saying this. The fact that Totti decides to commit forward too early for the first goal is my fault, not Totti's. We'll make sure to tidy those bits up. And I get it, but also there was other things in that first goal, wasn't there?
I think one of the things that's a bit problematic as well with Gary O'Neill's approach to this, and they're probably the best 2 examples, the West Ham and the Brighton one. And with Totti, I mean, that's good that he's at least recognising it. Probably, other than Newland Lopetegui, probably turn his back to the game for the rest of it. But I think one of the things that's problematic is, it's all well and good saying that we're toe for toe, toe to toe with we're playing at a similar level to these teams. But when you're losing to a team 3-0 after 2-0 versus Brighton or something, you can't assume that they're going to be playing with the same. They might be playing with more freedom, but they're definitely not playing with the same intensity that they were playing at 1 or 2-0. And for us to say that the overall balance of the game was like that, and I know, obviously, classic cliche, goals change games and whatnot, but it just didn't quite sit with me very well. And I was, really underwhelmed with those comments, because I think, like you said, I think there's quite a few fundamental problems with that game, and creativity I thought was a massive one as well.
Yeah, that first goal, Totti's high, and therefore out of position. And if Gary's sort of taken that on the chin, that's where he wants him. For me, Semedo holds up the play enough, and then Dawson, rather than goes to the ball, he retreats even further. That's a mistake that is not tactical. That's just a decision, isn't it, that Dawson's made to to retreat instead of, go to the ball. I mean, you play five-a-side at goals, everyone just shouts someone needs to go to the ball, and that's what needs to happen at that point. Semedo's held the ball up with the player with Kudus, and he's done everything he can, in my opinion, to stop that particular phase of the play. But then what should then happen is someone should double up on that, because Dawson's not marking anybody. He's not covering a run. He doesn't engage the ball, and therefore Semedo's done his job, and then he's 2 steps away from where the ball's going to go. And yeah, Dan Bentley, like you said, standing there like Frosty the Snowman, just in the middle of his goal, nowhere near his near post, and it just happens to find the middle of the goal instead of even the corner. I think there was effort levels in yesterday's game. I think, picking up for what Michael said, that is what I think is the hardest thing to swallow, isn't it? There seemed to be a distinct lack of get up and go in between the two teams. One of them, granted, is the home team on the back of a 5-0, but there wasn't much between the two teams on paper and on the pitch, I don't think. I just think there was, other than Paqueta being a difference maker yesterday, no one in West Ham overly impressed me.
No, well, I was going to say Paqueta got all 3 assists yesterday. And very much, I was going to say, when you look at where the assists went, very much exploited, I guess, our left-back area, which is really surprising and frustrating, because I think Toti Gomez has been one of our standout players when he's played in a back 3. But it definitely felt like we didn't do enough to stop their strengths. Nor did we show up our weaknesses, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good job Gary O'Neill came out with his comments about Toti's positioning, because like the way he cantered and meandered like for the second tracking back, it was literally like I thought my streamers had gone awry. Like they put 50p back in the modem, because he, that intensity, that bust a gut at all costs. There were cries for people saying that like we're too naive. We're not putting in those yellow cards on the transition that you put in like halfway up the pitch, because the tactical fouls that we should be putting in. Yeah, Gary O'Neill's actually done him a huge favour with those comments, really, because I thought he had a poor game.
Yeah, I think so too. Unfortunately, I quite like Toti Gomez, and you could argue Bellegarde doesn't do enough to. I think the accusation was similar, I guess, to Ed's disgruntlement, is that he didn't challenge enough for it. For want of a better term, he was probably never going to win it, but he didn't do enough to actually put them off or stop them.
No, I don't think so. But I think this is the first time Toti Gomez has had probably. I think he's been riding a bit of a wave since he joined Wolves, or at least since he broke through into the first team in 2022. Is that right? January 22.
Yeah,
I've got in my head at least. And I think he's been riding a wave, and that's largely from the credit he's built and those performances and consistent performances he's been in. But it's a bit of a different challenge, and I think it's not just today. I don't think he was fully convincing at times against Forest nor against Burnley, and I think Gary O'Neill could have maybe picked up on that a little bit as well. All well and good wanting to attack the game, but if you've got an out of form kind of left back who's maybe not always been a left back, I know we signed him as a left back from Estoril years ago, but I'm sure he would have spent a lot of time, given his size and stuff, playing centre back as well. I just think it's a bit of a bizarre, maybe unnecessary decision, and I think he kind of wanted the best out of Totti, where he's like, oh well, if I have him in, he's gonna maybe. I thought he would sit deep and he would be solid for us, and he'd allow other players to push forward. But no, he very much got sucked into the action. And if Gary O'Neill's taking accountability for that, I think that's quite a mind-boggling tactical choice. Why you would leave somebody who doesn't have the recovery pace? He's not the slowest, but he's definitely not the fastest either, especially on the turn. Why you would leave him so deliberately high up the pitch when he doesn't bring loads going forwards? He brings a bit, but not loads.
Well, that's what I sort of my kind of thought process is him starting is. I take a guess, and this is very much just an assumption, but maybe someone like Hugo Bueno was suffering from this virus as well, because I think it was quite notable how he kind of highlighted Dawson and Lamina, saying, "Oh, they are playing through it," but it doesn't say, and it implied that other people have had it. And I don't think Bueno's being standout, but he's slightly more of a natural player if you were going to play a left back there for me than Toti Gomez, who seemed to be trying to play left wing back despite playing at left back. And those extra 10 yards further forward is what left these holes that a couple of decent West Ham players were able to exploit, unfortunately. And, they did it again as well. And, whether you say it's on how we broke forward, it's so frustrating to kind of concede a goal on the counter attack anyway. But when it came from Lamina trying to play a hero ball to try and split a pack of about 18 players, it's frustrating from a player who's got the experience and the nous not to try that where we did.
I think there's a lot of time though, isn't there, to recover from that?
Yeah.
I think yesterday the lack of creativity that we've all talked about, I don't think we can then point fingers when we did try and create something. I think there are times where we do have players like Lamina and Aït-Nouri at times when he's played where they're forcing the play, because if we don't, then we could quite happily pass the ball sideways and play for a 0-0 from minute 5. So I think from a counter-attacking goal is disappointing to watch, but of course that was our game for so many years. You'd think that most of those players that are still there from the glory days under Nuno should know that we can engage and take one of those fouls that Matt talked about earlier on in that move to stop that being an issue. And yeah, I think the graphic that you had earlier, all those balls in from Paqueta are exactly where Toti Gomez normally is, in a back three. So we clearly, for whatever reason, although, Gary, and to shout him out again, Gully's right, that we are in a back four when we do have the ball, that's Totti's area in a normal game. And he wasn't there yesterday, and no one was, because, Dawson is not the one to play left centre back now against Kudus and Bowen, who are both probably quicker on one leg than he is on two, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it was frustrating. And you mentioned about these tactical fouls, and I think it's important to note that Wolves weren't completely bereft of creativity and did kind of carve up bits and pieces and had some nice sequences of play. But West Ham also are a physical team, and that's summarised by David Moyes, don't get me wrong, and they all know how to throw themselves about, and that would have been one of my reasons to probably go with a if you're going for a back four, I'd probably had 3 centre midfielders in there, just have a bit more weight in there. However, I was going to say it could be argued. It can't, because it's fairly non-debatable. Is that I think the tactical fouling and stopping of the creative play was taken slightly too far by Kufau, who I've watched it back many a time now, and I cannot get my head around how that's not punished at all. I cannot work it out.
So the only thing I was thinking with this, and that's because it was what actually went through my head at the time, was when I saw it, I thought, God, that looks nasty. And one of the things that's not been picked up loads, you look at David Moyes' reaction to the tackle, he's absolutely horrified with it. But one of the things that I think was maybe Soufal's saving grace was that I don't think I've seen a challenge like that since Ben Thatcher on Pedro Mendes, 17 years ago. And I think sometimes when you've not seen it for so long, you kind of think, it's not a textbook sending off in some ways. It is a red card for so many reasons in the referee's hand guide or whatever it is they read. But I think that was maybe the one thing that saved him, was just it was so out there and so ridiculous that's maybe why Jared Gillett, who, as we all know, is very reluctant to give a decision at times and also very eager at others, to to not make that call.
Wasn't it bizarre though how like the reaction from the players was maybe of shock and awe, because I think like he just pats him on the back, walks off. There's no major hoo-ha. There's no, I'd have thought with a challenge like that, it would have caused a scuffle. There'd be multiple reds. There's going to be headbutts thrown, all sorts. But it just existed. Someone threw a Judas effect elbow, and that was it. It was just I've never known anything like it. But like Jeff Stelling this morning on TalkSport, he was absolutely aghast with the challenge. It's 2 red cards in 1 offence. It's just bizarre.
I think you've touched on something really interesting there, Matt. That similar in a way, I guess, to Kilman's getting nearly headbutted against Fulham a few weeks back, and the fact that I don't know his reaction of I'm not going to rise to it either passively and feign injury or aggressively and knock the bloke out. I part of me is glad we are not that emotionally led team in a way that we saw against Brentford and Aston Villa, and it's like you compare what Emi Martinez got sent off for yesterday, right? Where he tries to pick a player by the shirt. It's all like drama, isn't it? But surely the referee's main job is to protect the player's safety. That is what they're there for. Everything else is kind of window shopping, in my opinion. You want to make sure that actually you're protecting the players from getting injured. And Matt, you're a solid, hearty fullback like myself. You'll have back in the day, but politely, he has very clearly looked to do him in there. There's no intention. We've all done it. The winger's quick and I'm slow. I'm going to push him. But the fact that he's clearly raised his elbow or raised his arm, and I think the only saving grace is the fact that he didn't fully catch him, I guess, at head height. But it just for mine,
I think it's it's an elbow-led block as opposed to a swinging of an elbow, which is probably the only thing that's possibly saved him as it being a violent conduct offence. As bizarre as that is, when you watch it in a slow motion replay, the movement of is almost as better God not goes towards him in any way, but that's almost the way he's turning his body in that, and I think that's the only thing the referee surely has used as an excuse, because will we get the audio of this? I don't know. Gary O'Neill very much has been, I think in this game he wants to dull down any talk about his yellow cards and VAR and everything, because it's becoming a bit of a cliche running joke now. But if there was ever a case for it, it's the proof's in the pudding what we've got on the screen.
Yeah, and there's an accumulation point as well. That wasn't the only challenge from Sufal, was it? There was 4 or 5, and he got one, but he got a booking, and that was it. He didn't even get a warning to say any more of that. He just Jared Gillett is it was him yesterday, wasn't it? Last year you couldn't go up and Mario Lamina certainly couldn't go up and ask him to explain the decision without getting sent off. Yet someone yesterday gets an elbow to the face and seems to be all okay with the Aussie.
Yeah, and part of me does quite like and respect that Wolves are a little bit more calm for stuff like that. But, you can see the picture, it's very much on the side of the, on the benches and things like that. And I don't know, a year ago, or 6 months plus ago, I'd have been intrigued to see what the reaction would have been with the likes of, let's say, Neves playing and some of the other...
Diego Costa as well.
Yeah.
Diego Costa would have been right over there, wouldn't he? That's the thing.
Yeah.
The only thing is, we got the slightly more mild Diego Costa, didn't we? So I don't know if he would have kind of, recognised the kind of bruteness in his heyday or something, and think, next generation of me. Or something. But
respected it.
I remember when we did the Leeds game map last season, and that was the polar opposite of game management, and we suffered equally for it. And Wolves had so many chances to win the game. They won at Molineux. But the game management was just absolutely atrocious. I know Johnny, was it just Mateus Nunes got sent off from the bench as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Like,
it was like the differences between the two. It was kind of like one was the calm before the storm, like we never acted, and one was the storm. We've gone too far the other way almost now. Like we're a bit too passive in those. I remember, I don't know if it was like I think people bizarrely put it down as like a Neves thing, in that since Neves has left, we're not like an emotionally charged team anymore, which was bizarre because he was never like the most up and down screaming. He was a bit, Cunha throws himself around.
He did whinge a lot though, didn't he? Neves. He was always whining.
He did like to
gesticulate.
Talk through that a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
I think Moutinho as well. Moutinho is probably a big loss in that sense because he was constantly around the ref, but he was quite clever. I thought he was one of the cleverer ones about it, actually. And like, maybe not. I mean, I don't think Lamina did much wrong, did he? But obviously, I think Moutinho was one of the two players. I think it was Moutinho and Neves, wasn't it? And it was the red card.
Yeah. So interesting. Mindset for players, and I guess I don't know. Like even at 2-0 down, going into half time. Because this is a slightly different Wolves side now, I was always confident that we'd get a goal and actually we'd test them. And I thought into the second half, so nearly did. Great bit of play, really well worked. Sarabia with a tap in. But unfortunately, it turns out that Sarabia also wears clown shoes and ended up being offside. And look, the idea... VAR isn't why we lost this game. Let's be abundantly clear. But I don't know. I know. I can physically see on my screen that we've got our lines, but his foot ain't that big, is it?
The only thing is about this is, aren't we to the millimeter offside is offside? I think Stu's drilled that into me over that long that I've kind of just given in to. If I'm going to have to let Stu be right about something, it might as well be something like this. Although,
let's be honest, peak Stuvo would be him sending me a WhatsApp this morning, of all things, with the image I've shown on the screen saying, if you want to use this later to squash this ridiculous discourse that it wasn't offside. You're all right. Like I get it.
The more interesting on this is ammo for the nameless Sarabia haters to say he should never have been in the position that he was in, back by half an inch to it, or it's a strange one, really. Is he ahead of the play, etc., etc. It's just one of those things. Like, bad day at the office is probably a little too kind, but when it goes wrong, tends to go spectacularly wrong for us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a frustrating one, isn't it? Go on, Michael.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry. No, I mean, I thought Sarabia was one of the better players in that game, and you're just really hoping when he scored. I mean, I had the thing, I was, watching it on Sky Go on my laptop, which is normally a minute or two behind, and I had the score notification up on live score, which I just hadn't got rid of. So I'd seen that Wolves had scored, and I was like thinking in my head, who do I want this to be? Who do I want this to be? And I think I just reached a conclusion of Sarabia before that ball's come in and he scored. I think either him or Bellegarde. And it's just absolutely gutted because it still showed the goal for ages. Obviously, what was it, 3.5 minutes at least? It felt a lot longer. But as soon as it went past a minute, just the look we've had, you just never thought we were getting that decision.
No, I called it as offside as soon as I saw it because I just thought he was leaning forward. I didn't see it as close as it is on the screen right now. I thought he was offside and told everyone to calm down. He's definitely gone offside. I was more gutted for Semedo to get an assist, to get some kind of goal return from Semedo to silent the silent majority that still seem to hate him for no apparent reason. He got into the box, he broke in, and he put the cross exactly where it needed to be. And Sarabia, instead of being a size 8, is a size 9 and taps it in. It's I was more gutted for Semedo. For me personally, I just think it'd be nice for him to get an assist or a goal or just something to sort of justify his solid play that he does all season, and yet gets a lot of flack still.
Yeah, it's always going to be the case, isn't it? I think with Semedo, but slightly, I've seen what Doherty's like when he's played this season, so I know which one I'd rather have. It did sort of feel like, I know, I had this confidence that we'd get a goal and we'd at least make it interesting. But I think as soon as we didn't score that, it did feel like the wind had been very much taken out of our sails, and 3-0 it very much became a formality at that point. Again, similar difficulties and frustrations with the first 2 goals, unfortunately.
There was, it was coming anyway. The ball was an inch away from going in when Bentley stood statuesque for the Bowen chance earlier, wasn't it? So I think it was going that way. And it's one of those, if not when Bowen kind of got some form of reward for his work. He's an incredible player. For them, will be down as a cult hero before too long, if not already, for West Ham. So it felt like it was all of the variables just felt against us. And again, can you say it was like one of the worst team performances of the season? No, I don't think you can. But some of the individual moments were ones that would, definitely make a bloopers DVD. So yeah, it's a frustrating one.
Yeah.
I was hastily nodding my head when you said, "Can you call it one of our worst performances of the season?" But only for you to say no, it wasn't. But I don't know. I think the thing that's left the sourest taste in my mouth is the substitutions. Like when it's not. I don't think it's coincidence that Sasha and Silva, Percy's broke that news today, which I know you said talk about later. But it's just so disappointing not to see them get involved. For what it's worth, it doesn't seem like they're being bad characters. And you're prepared to have them on your bench every week. At least put them on at 2-0 down. Like, you have literally nothing to lose, or 3-0 down, whenever it was. Like, I don't think we're going to be judged on goal difference later in the season. Maybe that's too soon to say. But, yeah, it just felt like such a missed opportunity to at least experiment in a Premier League match against a team that will really want to protect a clean sheet as well. That's something David Moyes prides himself on, isn't it? So, yeah, just so that was the thing I think that left me the most disappointed after the match was the substitutions, and I think maybe a bit too annoyed with Gary O'Neill on this occasion, because I haven't been generally, but I particularly was yesterday.
I think it's interesting that we talk, conflicting ideas about where it ranks in terms of our poor performances, and I don't know, weirdly, it wasn't as bad as some of the performances where we've got points in. And I think, I don't know, maybe this is having a manager who has somewhat more of a style and is trying to implement more progressive ideas in this team. But it's almost like, he gets the leeway when it's not always necessarily going our way. Like today, but actually, there is still positive things happening. But almost more of the frustration comes from when we are getting these draws against teams around us and who we'd be expecting to get 3 points against, but only kind of mustering up a draw, or we're scraping it against Burnley. And I think that's where it becomes frustrating. It's almost like Wolves are a middle average team with siphons of inconsistency, same as West Ham.
I was just thinking then when Michael was talking, and it's only just come to me now as we were talking about it. Is this a missed opportunity for Gary O'Neill just to go balls out and change the team? If we've got 3 players playing with a virus and a couple potentially on the bench, then why are we shoehorning players into positions they're comfortable in but not perfect in, when if you wanted to try 4 at the back, why don't we go all out and go 4 at the back and bring him one of those strikers that we've got up front and play Cunha in a floating role? Why not just go, if we are on hiding to nothing, and Gary O'Neill can come out afterwards and say, well, we didn't play Cunha, we didn't play Lamina, we didn't play Dawson because they're all shitting through the eye of a needle, then he's got an inbuilt excuse to say we had to try and do this because I didn't have all of my squad available, and it kind of gives him the freedom from not necessarily criticism, but a little bit more leeway from criticism to say, well, I was missing 3 of my key players, so I tried something different. And if it didn't work, it didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't know.
Let put this out there straight away. None of us know nothing about the inner workings of the transfer budget or anything like that. Me and Michael might eat the buffet at Molyneux every twice a month, but we have no more insight.
We don't listen anyway.
Exactly. But it's one of those things where, like, is this a plea from Gary O'Neill to say, look at what I'm working with, I want to play a style and I don't have the players to do it? That kind of gets bandied around in situations like this, doesn't it? It's one of those where actually he clearly has I want to say a philosophy. I don't know if you want to attribute a philosophy to what we've watched, but he has a way that he wants to play, and he's very quick to say when it's gone wrong and when it's gone right. And I commend him in a way to sticking to that and wanting to utilize the people that he feels have earned the places in the team. But there are times to experiment and there are times to not experiment. And when your hand is forced with players being out, like Ed, you put so well, that do something. I mean, unless his heart is 100% set on letting Sasha and Silva go, surely the best course of action is to give them minutes to impress. So he has a decision to make on whether to keep one, if not both of them. But they're on a hiding to nothing. They can't, they turn up every game. I know that, Kalajdzic threw his toys out the pram a little bit. Was it Luton, I think? But
yeah,
I mean, this isn't a Johnny elbow and spitting scenario. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's just it's a bizarre and a slightly unsavoury set of circumstances for a player that came back. Yes, got injured, but we all fell in love with him after the documentary, and he's obviously put a lot of his own personal self into his, getting back into the team and scored a ridiculous goal, or contributions in terms of like the Everton goal and everything else. For them to be leaving in the January window is just something not right about it.
One of the oh, sorry, Richard.
Yeah, go on. I was just going to probably say something very valid.
Before I don't think mine's going to be much better, but before he did his knee injury, obviously we got him from Stuttgart, didn't we, in Bundesliga? And one of the guys I do a European football one as well, and he does all the Bundesliga stuff, and he was absolutely obsessed with Kalajdzic as a player. Now I know there's a slightly different level, tempo, style of game. Strikers do probably tend to fare a little bit better in Germany, but I think there's a serious player there. I thought we saw in signs in pre-season as well, and I think like Matt said, it just feels such a waste. And Kalajdzic isn't the only player who's kind of thrown his toys out the pram and a bit. Obviously Johnny, I think that's a wholly different incident, but Pablo Sarabia did. I can't remember which game. It was after the Spurs one, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. He didn't really see much of the action, but he's been reintegrated, and maybe it will be in the cup game, the festive fixtures. I still think that's the only reason why there's a slight chance of reprieve for one of them, but I really don't think it will be Fabio Silva.
Yeah, and my worry is at the moment, Kuna's our only main central forward. Yes, he might play Hwang there, but I think in terms of a player who you've got front and centre, nearest to goal, in the middle of the park, I feel like I'll put a lot of parameters on just saying centre forward there. just a load of, I feel like it's a Fabrizio Romano treat. Just all these extra words add fuck all to the conversation. I should probably get back on track, shouldn't I? Yes, my point is that all we're going to do is just knacker him out because he doesn't like or trust the other two centre forwards on the bench, and it's only going to be a detriment to us. And I don't think Kuna was great yesterday. He had that shot from outside the box, which was solid, but I know, sort of at 3-0 down, part of me is going, just consolidate yourself. Give him a break. Got a couple of big games coming up. Let's just try something different. Or, I don't know, the way I see it is he had sort of two choices for me. Keep the back five, because that seems to be working, unfortunately. These players, culturally at the club, suit a back five. I don't know what it is, and despite the fact we've had changes in defence, in midfield, and up front, there's something that kind of works for this group of players. Maybe it's the wing backs. That's the only thing that's been sort of fairly consistent. Play 3 centre halves then. Just keep it the same. If you're worried about your left wing back, play Totti there. He might be okay. He'd be better there and have that solid framework and having various safety in numbers if that's the issue. And I don't know. I just don't. For all the positives that we did, I don't think, and evidently we didn't do enough to battle West Ham on their strong points and really can't go toe to toe with them, because similar to us, they're an average team. They are a team who will finish between 8th and 13th, which is most likely where we're going to end up. And it's like their last two games have been, one drubbing and one, hammering. And it somewhat evens itself out for them, I guess you'd argue. Whereas, where's it kind of put Wolves? And the answer's, not necessarily in a great place, especially when, we look ahead to the upcoming fixtures and where we can't sit at the moment. I mean, again, I don't think anyone's sort of too worried and concerned about relegation, as we're nearly at the halfway mark in the season. We're comfortably clear of the relegation zone. We're 10 points clear of it at the moment. Admittedly, Luton have a game in hand after their game was, abandoned sounds too harsh, a word for what can't have happened, but their game wasn't able to continue, unfortunately. But we're 13th at the moment, and it's still quite a busy pack. But when you take into account that Everton have had a 6-point deduction, a 10-point deduction, which would bring them on to 26, that drops us down another place, I guess. And we've got 3 very interesting fixtures in the space of a week, with the Christmas Eve game of all lovely days against Chelsea at home. Then we're away to Brentford on the day after Boxing Day, and then at home against Everton on the 30th of December. And it almost feels like these could, I don't want to speak too badly, but we kind of need 6 points out of these games. So,
yeah, it's funny because actually we could be overtook by a Bournemouth team that were dead in the water about 5 games ago that everybody tipped for relegation. So that, it moves around quickly, the table, not like in panic stations or anything like that, but the table does definitely change around this time of year. The fixtures are coming thick and fast. The irony is, I probably feel more confident against Chelsea than I would have done against West Ham going into that fixture. I think, looking at them, we're looking at a win, a draw, and a loss in that order in those fixtures, to be honest. I think we're going to be doomed to have some of the worst games of our season in terms of style and both teams against Brentford, which is going to be like a trilogy of games in about the space of 2 days or something stupid. So it's, a weird set of fixtures there where absolutely any result could happen in any 3 of the fixtures, I think you could argue. Everton are in a rich vein of form, aren't they? So it doesn't hurt that we play them last, if they had a slip up in between now and then and halt their momentum.
Yeah, there's enough time for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to get injured before then as well, right? So he could pick up the Christmas turkey on Christmas Day and, injure himself, couldn't he, doing that? So that's something we can hope for. But you could argue quite comfortably we'll pick up 7 points or 2 points out of those 3 games. Chelsea are a Jekyll and Hyde team. Brentford are flattering to deceive, and they are kind of on a slight slump. And Everton are flying at the moment, but all it will take is an injury to Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Dwight McNeil to have a bad game, and they're lacking creativity as well. So that could easily be a very dull 0-0 on the back of let's hope we get some points before then.
Yeah, I think one of the good things about... Oh, sorry. Go on, Richard.
No, crack on.
Thanks. I was just going to say, one of the good things about these festive fixtures is that we generally do tend to play the occasion quite well. I think this the West Ham 2 o'clock. I mean, I know it was on TV, but I'm not sure many people outside of us two would have been fan bases from our two clubs would have been too interested. And then I think, so Chelsea, I think that's quite good in that sense. Brentford on a terrible run of form, and Everton, I think, will be the toughest of those 3 games potentially. But I think all those 3 teams, we're also the exact type of team that they want to play at the moment, which I think in itself gives them extra motivation. So it does increase the stakes in a sense. And I think when the stakes will be high for these 3 games, because these are the types of games that will shape our season. So we do not get next to anything out of it. I think that's when alarm bells start to ring a bit more as well, because Gary O'Neill, I'm pretty sure with Bournemouth last season, his worst period was about from this time up until they played us in February or something, and they, scrapped out a 2-0 win, and then they kind of kicked on again towards the end.
Okay. You don't have. We're not going to do game by game because, as rightly discussed, it could be 7, it could be 2. And who knows how we're doing any of them. But out of the 3 games, what do we all think we're going to end up point-wise?
I'd put my hat on 4 points out of them. Like I say, a win, a loss, and a draw. I think pretty much sums up the average middling season we probably are having and will have.
Yeah, I'm to keep the Christmas theme going. I'm hopeful for 5 gold rings. Let's go for 5 points.
Ooh, an unbeaten patch.
Unbeaten. I think we can go unbeaten now. I think Gary's got to shore up shop a little bit. I can see us beating Chelsea. I genuinely can. I'll be there on Christmas Eve with my boy. We'll be one of the idiots going on Christmas Eve, and then let's just take 2 boring 1-1s or 0-0s out of the other 2 games and just come away from the Christmas period happy for once.
I'll go I'll go for 3 points. So I'll be a bit more of the Grinch in this one, but I'll either go for 1 win out of the 3, which I think would probably be most likely against Brentford away from home, even though our away form isn't great. I just think they're in a really bad place at the moment. Or 3 0-0 draws with a highlights for 2 minutes. No, not in
but the absolute sadist in me would love that. From a content perspective, it's awful, but from a carb, it's brilliant.
Yeah, well, 3 points gives me 2 nice options. So as long as we don't, whatever happens in the first game, it's still on, isn't it? So that's also why I've gone for it.
You sort of could. Similar, I'm in the same thought process from that. I'm thinking win 1, lose 1, draw 1. And you could literally pick a name out for a hat for which one it's going to come against. Preferably, I'd almost rather lose to Chelsea and then win against draw. I'd rather lose, draw than win in terms of the 3 games that are coming up, just because I think that would be better for us positionally.
Well, I just want to be able to shove it down Stu's throat because if Everton beat us, he'll secretly be wanking in the corner over Sean Dyche. So
you're having an erection that would power 1,000 suns.
He's a big fan of Sean Dyche, Michael. Just so you know,
rolled into town.
I am as well, but I'm not sure that much.
And we've got this young British manager trying to play, an interesting style of play, and Sean Dyche just swings in with his big crosses. It's fine.
He'd probably get the most out of Kalajdzic, though. To be fair,
he would.
There's a swap back, wouldn't
he? Yeah. He'd use him for the last 10 minutes to get something out of the game. Right, before we wrap up, I promised you a silly question, didn't I?
You did.
Right,
you did.
I'll do one, and I'll save the other one for when we're struggling again, probably on Christmas Day. But we're not doing a podcast on Christmas Day. Don't worry. But anyway, so my question is, what is your favourite culinary sensation? So mine. So this happened when I had dinner the other night. Where it came to me, and I thought, well, you know what happens. It's great when you're having dinner on a Thursday night. Podcast ideas. Anyway, the sensation of when you cut into a chicken Kiev, and it all kind of spews out. It's like, it's just perfect. Or like the crackling on a bit of pork, and like the sound that it makes. Like I've spread a knife over it.
That's become like a TikTok. Like food has become like an ASMR thing now, where you can't just eat food without caressing it in some audio sense of the word.
Well, I mean, my wife gets annoyed at me when she'll ask, "Is it ready yet, or is it done?" And I will say something like, "It sounds like it's done," because you can hear the sizzle on it. And it's like, well, if it's got a sizzle, then it's clearly reached the exact temperature that's going to be perfect for cooking, regardless of the integrity inside of it. So, I guess, what is your food ASMR?
I know what mine is comfortably. So, as a vegetarian who's like a carnivorous vegetarian, I like the things that taste as much like meat as possible. So I'll eat something, I'll try a new product, I'll bring it home and I'll eat it. And then when the missus looks at me and goes, "Oh, it looks and tastes too much like meat," that gives me a little bit of joy inside, and I don't know why. I can't put an explanation on it, mainly because I know it's all mine and I won't have to share it. But that would be mine.
Just so you know, Matt, there is a product called meat that's very much like meat. Just in case you were.
I heard without any of the moral or ethical implications.
Oh yeah, don't think about the morals or the ethics of the animal. If you do that, you'll never eat anything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I quite like a fried egg. A fried egg with that just oozes everywhere. I'm a fan of a fried egg that does that. But this is thinking on the spot now. You don't get to look like this by really thinking or taking pictures of your food very much. You just shovel it in as quickly as possible and hope there's more.
I'll go for a bit of a festive one, and that's partly because of tonight. So I think I had some cheese and crackers, but like a strong cheese, and almost that like melt in your mouth feeling.
Yeah.
Especially like a nice blue cheese or something. But then my partner said, "Oh, should we have some chutney on it?" I said, "No, just enjoy it for what it is." But it's that enhancer or whatever you call it. So that when you realise it is actually better, and I'm wrong about food again, then I'd say that is I'd like that.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, these are four white, fairly about 30-year-old guys that are talking about. But it's my cheese night tomorrow night, and I can't fucking wait. And I'm really looking forward to it. And it's a Christmas tradition that's only been in our household in the past 2 or 3 years. But God, I'm all for it, and I can't.
I was going to say that does sound like a solid tradition. I guess you can't. Are you exclusively eating with soft cheese as well? I'm assuming then, Matt.
No. I'm on solids.
Good.
But yeah, it's just all about all of the bits that come with it. The cheese, you're there for the cheese. The cheese is there and it exists. But I'm there for the sun-dried tomatoes. I'm there for the chutneys. I'm there for the little bits that go alongside of it. The little pickled onions that you eat. That when you bite the wrong one, you choke because it's too sharp. Like I'm all about that. I'm all about that life. Let's cancel the Wolves pod for next week. Let's just do buffet chat.
We can do food cast. I'm all for it.
I'm down.
Just cheese. Just cheese, man. It's just a cheese.
Yeah. I like the bit on when you get like a cheese platter, and like I'm sure like most of you just have like cheddar cheese, all the time. But it's when like it comes in different packaging, and it's like, oh, this is a bit different. Oh, this is how we do it on the continent. Like, oh, this is how you package camembert.
Well, there's no other point in the year where I would get a truckle of cheese that had chive in it at any other point in the year other than Christmas, where you get like loads of little things of cheese that are in candle wax. It's just a magical time of year.
Yes,
it is.
Oh. Yeah, let's sack off the pod and just talk about food. maybe we talk about football over food, and I mean we've got commentators on. Basically we could fill a gap in the market that's not existed in a couple of years now.
Hey, I'm sure that's how football cliche started, or any of the other big ones. They just had an idea and they went with it, and next thing you know, they're selling out UK tours.
All we're doing is stealing another idea. So if that's not what we've done for the past, exactly. If that's not a fan cast for the past decade, I don't know what is. I was going to say that seems like a very apt point to end the show, but I'd rather talk about food for a bit longer and not spend 45 minutes talking about Wolves. But anyway, we'll find some other time to talk about food. chiefly because I'm getting hungry. But we'll leave it for today, folks. Big thanks to everyone who's listened to the show. Not quite sure if we'll have time to fit a Chelsea preview show in, but we'll try. Obviously, we won't be doing a review show the day after the Chelsea show, but we'll do a double header following the Everton game as well, so we can keep you updated with all the Wolves, lols, and trolls. Make sure you follow Wolves Fancast on all the usual places: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube for anyone who's watching online. On there already, and if you listen on to a podcast, make sure you subscribe as well because we have other content as well, and also a plug for Michael's new podcast as well, World Ranking Pod. And I'll take a breathe and say it's goodbye from Matt.
Take it easy, everybody. Look after yourselves. Have a fantastic Christmas. Set on cage fighting. If anybody has listened, it's an incredibly stressful time of year, and people put a lot of pressure on themselves to have the perfect Christmas where people just want you to be happy with your loved ones. So don't put yourself through the mill of trying to, have the best Christmas possible. Our DMs are always open. Mine are as well. If anyone's struggling and needs someone to talk to over Christmas, do not be a stranger.
Fantastic. It's goodbye from Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me back on. It's been a while, but I'm going to keep it. That was much nice message from Matt, an important one than I can come up with. But yeah, I think my DMs are open as well, but you know where to best anyway. It's
goodbye from Ed.
Yeah, can't beat what Matt said. So everything Matt said, get some cheese in.
Yeah. What a message to end the show on, everyone. Have a great Christmas if we don't speak to you beforehand, and have a great day.